Good morning, I'm Vicki Green, and welcome to Community Conversations. Today we're talking about flying high at Worcester Airport. Flying out of there recently? Never knew it was there? Well, there's a lot going on up on the hill. So here to help break it down and explain flights, schedules, cost, weather, parking, all the details are two very important people. We have the Worcester County Sheriff and the chair of the board of Massport, Lou Evangelitis.
Nice to be here, Vicki.
Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. You have double duty there. So we've got the sheriff off the road at the moment and the director of Worcester Regional Airport himself, Andy Davis.
Good morning, Vicki. Thanks for having us.
Oh, I appreciate you because I think a lot of people, as you know, and I did my unscientific research on groups on Facebook, talking to people in Metro West and Worcester County. We have a large reach at these radio stations. We go to southern New Hampshire, we go to northern Connecticut, northern Rhode Island. A lot of people say, what's Massport? So, Lou, you were appointed to the Massport board by Governor Baker in 2015.
Correct.
And now you are chair of that board.
That's right.
Correct. And Massport came in and bought Worcester Regional Airport. I want to stress the regional portion of this. Worcester Regional Airport from the city of Worcester in 2010.
Correct.
Okay. So explain to people what Massport is.
Sure. How about like a 1-minute summary of the history of Massport? We just celebrated our 60th anniversary. Massport was a creation for a way to sort of have this region kind of galvanize itself behind a transportation system. And obviously its primary responsibility was at that time and probably continues to be Logan Airport. So in the 60 ensuing years, Logan Airport has gone from more of a local regional airport to an international success story and one of the great airports in the world. But Massport has other functions as well. So during those 60 years, we have taken over and now run the Port of Boston, which has a great deal of shipping going in and out of it, a big part of the economic activity going on in New England, the shipping that comes in from all over the world. China right now is a big part of what we're doing down at the terminals. We also have cruise lines coming in, so we deal with a lot of the maritime history as well. We also have a great deal of property down on the Seaport District, which is part of the development of Boston and seen an extraordinary expansion in the economic development of Boston, most notably in the Seaport and South Boston area, which, as you remember, was at one time kind of a warehouse district, and now it's one of the hottest and most vibrant areas in the country for development and economic activity. And in the ensuing 60 years, we also were able to take on Hanscom Air Force Base, and as you mentioned...
In Bedford, Concord.
And then as you mentioned, in 2010, the city of Worcester worked out an arrangement with Massport. Massport took over the operation of the airport. And to just fast forward now to today, in those ensuing 10 years, and this is a very exciting, important thing for people out here to appreciate, is Massport stands for the Massachusetts Port Authority, not the Boston Port Authority, but Massachusetts. And it's wonderful that Massport has taken what it operates and made a major investment beyond the city itself into central Massachusetts, and we believe it's an extraordinarily good investment for Massport, for the people of Massachusetts, and for Worcester County. And now with an airport we have in Worcester, there's been practically in the 10 years, and Andy could give you all the details, but we've talked about a $100 million investment that Massport has made in the Worcester Airport. So number one, the primary investment was a new Category 3 landing system.
Which we'll talk about.
But just to give you the overview, the landing system, the runway construction, the terminal construction, and I guess it gets to the point where if you're out here listening to us today and you have not taken the opportunity to avail yourself to Worcester Airport, you owe it to yourself to do it because we have a number of opportunities to fly. We have 3 major airlines right now scheduled or flying out of Worcester. You can get to anywhere in the world from Worcester as we speak, and it's only going to get better. But we have to use the airport, and that's the message I bring. If you come, as they say, if you build it, they will come.
Right?
We have built it. You must come. And I do believe if you use Worcester one time, you will come back because the experience is really quite extraordinary in the sense of the ease of getting to the airport now, the ease of parking.
I'm going to challenge that in a minute.
We will. Oh, I look forward to that.
That's my job.
But we will talk about the ease of getting to the airport, the ease of parking, the ease of getting through security and onto your flight and away you go, and the ease when you get back of getting home. If you live within 30 miles of Worcester Airport, my guess is you will probably get home in about 30 minutes from when you land.
And that's why I stress Worcester Regional Airport. Everybody refers to it as Worcester Airport. It's not just the people in Worcester County. that use this airport or that should use this airport. I mean, we've got listeners all over the place. And if you're, let's say, in the 495, Route 128, and you're dead middle between Worcester and Boston, so you could go to Logan or you could go to Worcester. Why go to Worcester? So, Andy, you were with American for 25 years. You worked your way up from customer service all the way to where you are now, which is a great success story. And now you're at this airport. Massport takes over, puts in the $100 million renovation. So who's flying out of there now? And explain the importance. I hear all the time, either if people don't know about the airport, the issue of getting there, which I'm going to debate with you in a minute, which I know you like to debate. And number two, there aren't enough flights. But people, I think, don't understand why the flights are designed the way they are, that they go through as hubs, and that people can make connections. Because people hear, what if they want to fly to London? Can I fly out of Worcester to London?
Absolutely.
What would you say to that?
So one of your first question is who's using Worcester Regional Airport? And basically that falls into our catchment area. That's basically people living in central Massachusetts and the surrounding edges of the other states. Approximately 2 million people actually could live closer to Worcester Regional Airport than the other surrounding airports. They have an option to travel. If you live in Worcester, you're 5-10 minutes away from the airport. If you live in the Natick, Framingham area, that's where you really have discretion to choose Boston or Worcester. Those are the customers we're focusing on. The people that are using the airport today are frequent flyers. They're on first name basis with JetBlue right now because they use the airport so frequently. These are the people that know the value of using Worcester Regional Airport as opposed to the other airports and the distance and the complexities involved in going to those airports. That's one of the great attractions for this airport to be used, and because of the convenience, as the sheriff mentioned just a minute ago, you don't have long lines. You don't have congestion. You don't have the potential for traffic on the Mass Pike. You're almost guaranteed getting to the airport off the Mass Pike in less than 15 minutes. You're 300 feet from a parking lot.
Which costs what per day?
$7 a day and $42 a week.
$7 a day to park. I mean, you cannot beat that. I looked up TF Green in Rhode Island. I looked up everybody. You cannot beat $7.
So if you're a traveling family with young kids and bags and car seats, think about the other airports. To get a very low cost to park, you're probably having to take a shuttle that operates every 15, 20 minutes up to 2 miles away from the terminal. You come to Worcester Regional Airport, you park 300 feet away, you've got everything within walking distance right into the terminal. So the convenience factor of using an airport like Worcester Regional Airport being small and friendly and clean and attractive is the biggest selling point that we have to offer.
So let's talk about the flights out of there. Either one of you can talk about. JetBlue went to Florida. Now Direct Air flew out of Florida. So Orlando, they're going to Orlando and Fort Lauderdale,
correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. So those are big, obviously, family destinations, right?
Can I comment on those just because
Absolutely.
we're commenting on those first? They were really the first big flights out of Worcester through JetBlue. They were direct flights on the way to Orlando and Fort Lauderdale, and direct flights down, direct flights back. What is extraordinary about those, if you have not done it and you fly to those destinations, I recommend anybody one time, you will become a regular flyer out of Worcester to those destinations. And I'll give you an example. Last time I flew back from Fort Lauderdale, I think the flights leave, Andy, do you remember what time they leave? Around 2:30 in the afternoon? Right. They get back about 5:30. I had an event to go to at 6:30 that night. My flight arrived in Worcester at 5:30. I went home, changed into a suit, ate dinner, and arrived at the event early. That's how convenient it was. It was unbelievable. From landing at 5:30, changing, eating dinner at home, and still being at my event at 6:30, which was a few miles away. So those were extraordinary. They've been successful. You should, if you haven't tried those, please do. JFK expanded their service now to JFK.
That's important.
It's a big step for us. Now, every step in this, and Andy and I have talked a lot about this, every step that we're going to be talking about, whether it be American now and Delta coming shortly, they are part of a process. And those of us out here see this as a long-term process. So you may look initially and say, well, the JFK flights are at 6 o'clock in the morning out of Worcester. That's early. But it also gets you to JFK where you have hundreds of flight options anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world, right out of Worcester. You'll be at JFK by 7 in the morning, and you'll be on your connecting flight, hopefully, in the morning, and you're off to anywhere in the world. once we get more success with these flights, we'll expect there'll be additional flights on. So it's sort of a process. The airlines are excited about Worcester. That's what brought American here now, which I'm sure we'll be talking about, but it is flying to Philadelphia beginning next month. They have over 100 connecting flights in Philadelphia, and those flights are going to be twice a day, Andy, correct? Both morning and afternoon, and coming back morning and afternoon. So you can go to Philly for the day, but you can also connect to and from Philly back to Worcester anywhere in the world. And then we had a very exciting announcement recently for Delta, and we know it's a little ways out, but it was important to let the people know. Yeah, this is happening. The airlines are excited about Worcester. They're coming, and they're coming more and bigger. And Delta now is the latest to come on board, and they'll be flying us to direct flights to Detroit. But again, major connections right out of Detroit through anywhere out in the Western U.S., Canada, international flights. So we believe the options are there. People come out to Worcester, and I'll even suggest this. Even if the flights are comparable or even slightly more expensive out of Worcester, I'm not sure they will be, but think about the ease and the lack of stress and that comes with that whole total package. So I just can't stress enough, especially those in the Metro West area. Give Worcester a try. You'll be astonished at how pleasant an experience it is and how reliable the experience will be. And if you try that, hopefully, we're also... Logan is extremely successful. Our numbers are exploding.
You can't.
No, but I mean,
Logan being on Massport.
We've gone from 30 to 40 million passengers over the last 5-6 years, and we're on our way up well beyond that. So we're also looking to give Logan a little bit of a breather, and we think Worcester is the perfect opportunity. So it serves everyone's purpose for Worcester to be a great success as an airport. But I predominantly believe the majority of people we need to get to try Worcester is the Metro West region.
It is. And also, we have people in Northern, I don't want to, disregard the folks that are local that do use it. There's plenty of folks local that don't. There's also a lot of corporations and companies. And Andy and I were talking earlier about this, the number of charter planes, private planes. You have Retrix, which is a company up there. Why don't you explain? They have a hangar, and they also do certain flights and charter flights for sports teams, our colleges. You have hospitals, lots of companies in the Westboro-Marlboro area now. How are they using the airport?
You mentioned Retrix. They've been partners with us for going on 6 years now, and they're called a fixed-based operator, which provides all the ground handling services, not just for the commercial airlines, but for general aviation, corporate jets, and whatnot. And that's everything from fueling to de-icing to aircraft maintenance to coordinating catering services, crew services. They have operations areas for crews to do their flight planning and whatnot. But really, they are I call them a white glove red carpet treatment of the business traveler, where they have a beautiful 27,000 square foot facility and hangar, where it's just caters to the business traveler. And who are those business travelers? These are executives, salesmen. These are technicians that need to get from point A to point B, where time is of the essence. And if you're going to say, let's just use a technician with a broken down piece of equipment in their factory in Indiana.
But their company's in Marlboro.
Right. They need to get that technician there. He's not going to go to Boston and make a connection through Chicago to backtrack to Indiana, because there's no nonstop service between two small cities. Mm-hmm. That's where the glamour of corporate charter travel aviation is. You can charter a plane. Time is critical. You can get from point A to point B in a matter of an hour and a half, if necessary.
And how much a percentage of the airport now is commercial versus charter? Because there is, we've talked about how you have the NCAA teams here that may have to, they drive to as many games as they probably can for fiscal reasons, but they do have to fly. Sure. And now we have, I don't know if I call them the Paw Sox, the Woo Sox, I'm going to call them the Red Sox, coming to Worcester. What does that open up for the airport? For visitors going to a game, for teams coming in?
Twofold. That's one of the great things about the airport. We're catering to both corporate, charter, business jet activity, as well as commercial activity. Interesting fact is the Pawtucket Red Sox currently play primarily 13 other teams throughout the United States. The new American Airlines schedule can take you through Philadelphia to every one of those cities to see them play at an away game. Plus, those teams have to also come to Worcester to play against the Red Sox. If they're flying a charter jet, we have the full services at the airport to do that. That's the important thing about this airport. It's an economic engine for the economy around here. As a report was done just a few years ago that the airport itself generates $46 million of economic activity. It generates 358 jobs, directly and indirectly, and that's about over a $14 million payroll. That's money going into the area and the businesses that surround the airport and the community as a whole. So that's that's an important factor of having an airport that's viable like Worcester Regional Airport.
And I think that's a critical thing. Now, let's debate. I mean, you were quoted, like I said, as saying you like to debate, and I know Lou probably likes this too, access to the airport. We're not going to take forever about it. But I flew out of the airport in the 90s when Direct Air was flying. I had a great experience. They were not on a Cat 3 system. So explain, it was $32 million, correct?
Right.
That everyone's hearing, you hear all the time, I'm not going to fly out of Worcester. Worcester is always fogged in. My plane's always late. If I go to Logan, I have I have another shot of getting on another airline. I can go to another terminal because Worcester's up at 1,000 feet, which is obviously much higher than Logan at sea level. So what do flyers have? What does this Cat 3 system do, and how is it going to make people's lives easier? That maybe online folks were saying I flew out a couple years ago and I was delayed all the time in Worcester because of fog or low clouds. What does Cat 3 do?
Cat 3, it addresses reliability, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. And talking to people, they say, we're not going to fly out of Worcester because of the reliability. The plane will divert or cancel because of low fog. Airlines wouldn't even consider Worcester Regional Airport because of reliability. They need their airplanes at the destination because that plane's needed for the return trip. And so if a plane diverts, that plane is out of sequence now. That crew is out of sequence now. So that was one of the first things we really focused on when Massport purchased.
I was going to say Massport had a lot to do with
right,
that. Yeah.
Exactly. And with the help of Congressman McGovern bringing the Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood for a tour, that's where we discussed and agreed upon installing this Cat 3 system back in 2012. This system now addresses the reliability. The planes can come in what I refer to as pea soup fog, where the previous system would allow a plane to land with 1,800 feet of horizontal visibility and a 200-foot ceiling. They have to break out of the clouds 200 feet above the ground. The planes today landing can do it with 50 feet vertical ceiling and only 600 feet of horizontal visibility.
So in other words, they can land in the fog.
Yes.
And there's been lighting upgrades in Massport. We got FAA money and state money to repave. There's some repaving of the runway. What else is going to make sure that folks who do come have a good experience? That, you can't say no flights are ever going to be, every single flight's going to be on time. No airport's going to say that. But if people decide to use Worcester out of Logan, you want them to have, obviously, they're going to try it once, as you said, Lou. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. Try it once. No matter where you're going, because you can go through the hub of JFK. But don't let the weather be necessarily the guide, because Worcester Airport has changed dramatically when this system came in. It means a lot. It's very technical, and we're not going to go into all the technology, but what it basically means is the lighting's better, you can fly in bad weather, and there's a much better, higher rate of on-time reliability. Right. Okay. So what about the number of folks that work at the airport when you talk about the economy?
We currently have full-time employees closing in on probably 150 employees. And these are everybody from the newly hired American Airline employees. I believe they're hiring 17 people. JetBlue has approximately 20. We've got car rental companies, 3 major car rental companies there. Retrix has over 45 employees. But we also have the TSA.
Yeah.
We have the FAA controllers. We have FAA technicians. Those are permanent full-time jobs up at the airport. But as in any airport and as in any transportation utility, we are eternally under construction. So we have contractors there paving, repaving the runways and doing landscaping.
And they're local people.
And they're all local people. And that's what's keeping people employed, is not just full-time, but continuous improvements on the airport.
Okay. Lou, you grew up in Worcester. I don't know if you both live in Worcester or obviously neighboring towns right now.
Yep.
But let's talk about access, because I'll tell you, 20 years ago, that was the biggest argument that everyone was making. Not argument, but maybe, I don't know what the right word is. Maybe it was disappointing. But you had people on city council talking about, we need a direct connection to a highway. Mm-hmm. Route 9, people in Framingham, they think of Route 9 as it is now. shopping malls, strip malls. You come into Route 9 in Worcester, and it goes all the way up to the airport, but it starts getting residential. You have like a double yellow line, single yellow line. It really, it's called, it goes from, Highland Street to Pleasant Street. And it goes north of Worcester. So how do you let people know that that's okay? Even though you're driving through residential neighborhood, that you've timed it out, it's not going to be as difficult. And is there any plan in the future to change any of that? You hear with the Red Sox, they're going to have to change Kelly Square. Well, this isn't as complicated as the intersection.
Nothing's more complicated than Kelly Square.
Right.
Say that.
Right, and they can do it, so why can't the airport do it? Honestly.
Right.
It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
Massport's in there. You've got money. You're certainly supportive. You've got the governor and lieutenant governor's support. It's definitely the airlines and the FAA. Massport's bringing everybody together on this one. So are we going to see is there talk of anything even down the road to improve access from a major highway? It is kind of far.
Okay, well, first I'll address the issue of the access before we get into the future access. And the current access, I would ask anybody who's listening to this podcast or the radio broadcast, and we have GPS systems out. Everybody has on their phones. And as far as I'm concerned, the young people today don't even know north, south, east, or west. They just know what their direction tells them. I'm fearful they're going to send everybody in one direction and never see them again. But nonetheless, that is the way people travel these days. And I would ask anybody, first of all, if you're in an area outside of Worcester, GPS, do a Waze or a Google map search of getting to Worcester Airport. And you will pretty much guarantee that the time it tells you is the time it will take you. So whatever time of day, maybe a few minutes here and there, where, sometimes other airports, it can be very dependent on the time of day. But also, it tells you exactly how to get there. So that you don't worry about getting lost anymore. If there was any issue like that, that's over. There have been some improvements made already in certain signage, and we believe that the access now 6 miles from the Massachusetts Turnpike, just a few miles from 290. It's a short part of your trip.
So it's the 290. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's the 290. So people listening understand the 290 Mass Pike interchange. That's where you're going from. So if you were coming out of Boston, and you're coming west on the Pike, it's the Auburn Route 290 exit.
Correct.
And from there to the airport is how many miles?
Just slightly over 6 miles.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, we're talking about proximity to major thoroughfares already exists. But agreed, the last part of the trip will be a little bit more residential than people are used to. But again, there's not heavy traffic in those areas. There's very few stoplights once you get through that Webster Square area. So I think you're going to find the experience now is good or better than getting to most airports just because of its proximity and the ease of everything else. The total package, positive. The question is really, where do we go to make the airport even more accessible and easier? I think that's a discussion that has happened in the past, and I can assure you it's happening now. The question is, how and when do we approach it? And we've pulled out, as chairman of Massport, I have asked, and we have already had preliminary meetings on this. We've looked at the old transportation suggestions back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I assure you, number one, we want to show the viability of the airport. It was kind of like which comes first, the chicken or the egg. I think we all agree that right now we've got the airlines committed to bring flights. Mm-hmm. Let's show that the people in this area will support the flights. And then if we need to continue, which we do hope and expect will be the case, we'll continue to have a discussion once we see the numbers rising. How do we best accommodate the additional passengers, get them to the airport? And we are looking at those plans. And I know there's been controversy, as there always will be, and I get that. But I want to assure you, I think the current situation is good. I think we're looking to make it even better. And I think if I had to say a timetable, I'd say in the next few years, as we expect the airport passenger load will increase, I think there'll be more discussion and more focus on how can we best get folks from perhaps 290 or even the Mass Turnpike directly or as directly as possible to the airport.
And I believe you, because Massport wasn't involved in the 90s, and I think it's done, I'm sure Andy knows, without the support, I would imagine, sitting as director of the airport, you're loving this, because when you first came in, you probably had seen what the airport was doing prior to Massport taking over. So, I mean, it's been an amazing thing. So many things are exciting and happening, and, what do you think needs to be done to appeal to passengers and getting additional airlines? Because the one thing that we haven't addressed as we wrap up is people also look and say, okay, JetBlue, what they don't understand is that going to JFK Airport is a hub, meaning you can do you can go at any city, you can go on any international flight. Because people might say that don't know, they go to the airport website and they see 2 flights flying in the morning, or 3. That's it. Well, that's not it, right? Because if you want to go to JFK, you can make that connection to anywhere you want to go. Right. And Andy, you had said a comment to me or in a prior conversation about the time you had it down to the time it takes to do the layover using Boise as a.
Yeah, that was a good example, because if you think about needing to go to Boise, there's no nonstop service.
Boise, Idaho, that is.
Right. There's no nonstop service out of Boston, Providence, the surrounding airports. So you're going to make a connection anyway. So why even go to one of the other airports? Because you've got that drive time. If you're going to make or even if you're doing a nonstop flight to a location, you've got a 45-minute minimum drive time to, say, Boston. That's the same connecting time as it is at an airport that you can connect out of Worcester out. So if you're going from central Massachusetts to Boise, you're going to connect next August on Delta. That's going to be a 45-minute connect time. You get off the plane, you get to stretch your legs, and you're still going to get to your destination from the time you're leaving your house to the destination. You're eliminating that drive time factor by making a connection, and you're probably doing better from point A to point B.
Okay, so I guess as we wrap up, what I think I hear everybody saying, and I'm a big fan of the airport and the excitement that it's bringing, and all the economic drivers that are happening with the restaurants and the hotels downtown and the colleges and the hospitals. And now, as you said, Lou, build it, they will come. So you're now getting more airlines, and as you said it, as I heard you say, is that the more people fly, people listening, the more you fly, go look up the schedules on Worcester Airport's website. Go look at JetBlue. Go look at American's going to start in October. Delta's not going to start, though, till next summer. So we've got American flying through Detroit. You can connect there, right? We've got
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, I'm sorry. You've got JetBlue that's got the 2 Florida flights and JFK. And JFK is a huge one. So we need to increase those numbers. We need people flying out of Worcester so that we can build things up by the airport. I'd love to see a hotel. I'd love to see a restaurant. I'd love to see, you said you have a full-service bar in the terminal. People don't know that. People are used to it years ago as being quiet and where is it and what is it. You're working on signage, Lou, you said. As 2020 comes about, right, in 2 years, that'll be 10 years of Massport taking over. If we get those flyers in, if our listeners are going to come and now go after the show and plan out their next trip and go through Worcester, what do you think we can plan for maybe in the next, I'm not going to hold you to it, but in the next maybe 2 years, what do we see? By 2020, the 10-year anniversary of Massport.
Well, and I'll answer first and I'll let you finish on it, because I would only say this and to put a little perspective. I remember as a boy, I grew up in Worcester in a 3-decker here. And my dad used to, the closest I ever got to an airplane, my dad would say, want to go up to Worcester Airport today and just watch the planes go in and out. And I remember watching this, pretty modest airport, and I think they were called Yellowbird planes or something. And then I think to like a couple of weeks ago when we had the major announcement with Delta, and I looked around at this incredible terminal and the enormous investment that Massport has made and the excitement that this airport's generating. And I believe we're on a path that in 2 years' time, we're going to be looking more like a Providence kind of regional airport than we are perhaps like the Worcester Airport back in the 60s. I think we're on our way to becoming a major secondary airport for the people in this catch basin area. And I think that's real exciting. Many people have flown out of the Manchesters and the Providence and the Hartfords. I think we're looking at moving in that direction, and that's a game changer. That's just not a few flights a day. It's a major secondary airport for the citizens of Massachusetts.
And our closer goal is to get more frequency and more airlines, obviously, but we've got to demonstrate to the airlines that people will use the airlines that are there now. I'd love to see a second flight to JFK on JetBlue to enhance their network. And airlines are very strong on brand loyalty. If they see Worcester's a success, they're going to add more service to other hubs or possibly point-to-point service. So that's the key. Let's fill these airplanes now, and that's where the opportunities will be in the future.
All right, listeners, you heard it. You heard it here. We want you to look at Worcester Airport, your next trip that you're planning. It doesn't have to be Florida. It could be a business trip. If you own a company and you need to get your employees out, get them out through Worcester. If you live on 495, the 128 belt, you've got a choice. Fly Worcester. It's going to be cheaper. As Lou said, try it once. If it doesn't work, you don't have to try it again. But we're pretty confident that you're going to be
I
happy.
didn't say it doesn't work. It's going to work. Try it once.
I'm going to say, try it once and it'll work. All right, so thank you so much to both of you. Lou Evangelitis, Chair of the Massport Board and Sheriff of Worcester County, and Andy Davis, the Director of Worcester Regional Airport. Thank you for being here today. I greatly appreciate it, and I'm going to come up there and take my next flight out of there.
Thank you.
Vicki. Thanks for having us.
All right, so that's Community Conversations for today. I'm Vicki Green. Have a wonderful day.